No, not both. Daniel's scream echoed through the sterile white room of the Chicago hospital, where his twin daughters, Lily and Sophie, were diagnosed with a rare form of liver cancer. Only 7 years old, the girls with radiant smiles now faced a death sentence. Sophie had weeks left. Lily might last longer. Daniel's millions couldn't buy a miracle. Every treatment had failed. But in the shadows, Clara, the housekeeper they called Mama Clara, silently vowed to fight. She had no rights, no blood ties, but she had an unyielding heart. Could she save both, or would only one survive? Rain poured outside the Chicago hospital window, each drop slamming against the glass as if trying to break the stifling silence in the examination room. Daniel Harper, a self-made millionaire with salt and pepper hair and piercing eyes, sat motionless in a leather chair. Across from him, the chief oncologist, glasses low on his nose, slowly opened a thick file. The air felt heavy as lead. Daniel's twin daughters, Lily and Sophie, only 7, played innocently in the corner with colorful building blocks. Their clear laughter rang out, starkly contrasting the storm about to hit. The doctor took a deep breath, his eyes full of regret. "Mr. Harper, I'm so sorry," he began, voice heavy as stone. "Both Lily and Sophie have a rare form of liver cancer, hepatoblastoma, end stage." Daniel felt his heart stop. He clenched his fists, nails digging into his palms, struggling to stay composed. "Both?" he whispered, as if disbelieving his own ears. The doctor nodded, his voice trembling as he explained that Sophie's tumor was metastasizing faster, giving her mere weeks, while Lily might have months. No conventional treatment worked. No clinical trials were viable. The room seemed to shrink, white walls and fluorescent lights pressing in on Daniel. He glanced at his girls. Lily, with her golden hair in a ponytail, was building a towering structure, humming a children's song. Sophie, weaker, leaned against her sister, her large eyes slightly clouded with fatigue. Yet she smiled as Lily handed her a red block. They were identical, same smile, same dimples, same sparkling eyes, but now fate was tearing them apart. Daniel's chest ached, as if someone were crushing his heart. He was a man used to control. As the head of a chain of Chicago tech startups, Daniel had built a fortune through decisiveness and brilliance. He'd thought money could solve anything from tough contracts to lavish vacations. But now, in this cold room, he realized money couldn't buy time for his daughters. He recalled their early days, when he and his wife, Anna, held them, laughing in their sprawling suburban home. Anna had died after their birth, leaving Daniel alone with the twins. Now, he faced losing Lily and Sophie too. The doctor kept talking, his voice flat, like a memorized script. They'd tried CT scans, blood tests, biopsies. The results didn't change. "We'll do everything we can," he said, but his eyes betrayed the truth. Hope was nearly gone. Daniel stopped listening. He saw only his girls, their matching pink dresses, their laughter in the garden, their mornings rushing into his room, demanding pancakes. Those moments now felt like shattered glass, sharp and impossible to piece back together. He stood, walking to Lily and Sophie, kneeling beside them. "Daddy, look," Lily chirped, pointing to her wobbly tower. Sophie smiled weakly, her small hand clutching her sister's. Daniel forced a smile, his eyes red. "You're amazing," he said, voice choking. In that moment, he swore to do anything to save them, no matter the cost. The rain outside kept falling, its patter like an invisible clock ticking down the girls' time. Daniel stood, wiping his eyes, and turned to the doctor. "Is there any other way?" he asked, voice firm. The doctor shook his head, but his gaze drifted to the door, where a woman stood silently watching. Clara, the housekeeper who'd cared for Lily and Sophie since birth, stood there, hands clasped, eyes burning with resolve. She'd heard everything, and in her heart, a daring plan began to form. But what could she do when the world had given up on the girls? And now, dear audience, pause to subscribe to the channel before diving into the heart of the story, but only if you truly connect with what I'm sharing here. Drop a comment below to tell me where you're watching from and what time at island. It's fascinating to see people from all over joining us. The fiery sunset bled through the window of Daniel Harper's lavish Chicago office, gilding the framed awards on the wall. But Daniel didn't notice. He sat slumped at his desk, phone pressed to his ear, voice hoarse from hours of calls to medical experts worldwide. Before him, his computer screen displayed emails from top hospitals, Mayo Clinic, Johns Hopkins, even a research center in Switzerland. All gave the same answer: no cure for Lily and Sophie's rare liver cancer. Money, once Daniel's weapon to conquer any challenge, was powerless against his twin daughter's fate. Daniel had spent millions in recent weeks. He'd chartered jets to fly top doctors to Chicago, sent Lily and Sophie's blood samples to labs in Boston and London, and funded cutting-edge clinical trials. Chemotherapy, immunotherapy, experimental drugs. He tried everything, regardless of cost. But each spark of hope fizzled out. The tumors in the girls' livers kept growing. Sophie, worse off, was fading fast. She could no longer run, sitting quietly, clutching an old teddy bear Mama Clara had given her. Lily, though stronger, was tiring, her sparkling eyes dimming with worry for her sister. Their suburban home, once alive with the twins' laughter, now stood silent like a museum. Lily and Sophie's crayon drawings still clung to the fridge, fading with time. Daniel rarely went home. He lived in his office or the hospital, searching for answers. Business meetings were canceled, calls from partners ignored. He was no longer Chicago's powerful millionaire, just a helpless father counting his daughter's days. Each time he saw Sophie's cough or Lily's forced smile through pain, it felt like a knife in his heart. The hospital doctors kept trying, but their tone grew desperate. They suggested palliative care, a term Daniel couldn't stomach. Palliative? He thought, fists clenched. He didn't want his daughters merely comforted in their final days. He wanted them to live, to laugh in the garden, to grow up, graduate, love. He recalled a summer morning when Lily and Sophie smeared frosting on each other's faces in the kitchen, laughing until they fell. Those moments now felt like a lavish dream, obscured by antiseptic smells and the beep of hospital machines. Yet Lily and Sophie held on to astonishing innocence. One afternoon, as sunlight slipped through hospital blinds, Lily grabbed crayons to draw a picture of the twins under a rainbow. Sophie, though weak, pointed, demanding a unicorn in the drawing. They giggled, as if the disease didn't exist. Daniel stood outside the room, watching through the glass, his heart both warmed and shattered. He wondered how two small children could be stronger than him. Sophie, despite struggling to breathe, held Lily's hand, whispering something that made them laugh loudly. It was a rare moment when Daniel felt a flicker of relief, as if their smiles were the only medicine still working. But reality didn't budge. The doctors warned Sophie might not survive the month, while Lily could hold on longer, but not much. Daniel refused to accept it. He contacted a California lab researching gene therapy, but they needed time Sophie didn't have. Each night, he sat by their beds, reading fairy tales, trying to fill their final hours with love. But deep down, he carried an unspeakable fear. Could he save both, or would he lose one forever? In the room's corner, Clara, who'd cared for Lily and Sophie since birth, watched silently. She cleaned, brought water, and stroked their hair, but her eyes burned with a resolve no one noticed. She'd heard every conversation, seen every tear, and in her heart, a bold idea was growing. If Daniel's money couldn't save them, could her heart do it? All right, my dear audience, if you're watching and gripped by this story, comment 1 or I'm still here to keep listening. The creak of a nurse's cart echoed in the Chicago hospital corridor, blending with the steady beep of heart monitors. Lily and Sophie's room, adorned with crayon drawings on the walls, was now the center of their small world. Unicorn and rainbow balloons, gifts from a kind nurse, floated above, swaying when the door opened. But the dim fluorescent light couldn't hide the truth. The hospital had become the twins' second home, where each day brought a harsher challenge. Lily, her golden hair tied high, often sat on her bed, drawing vibrant pictures to tape on the window. She loved telling stories about flying cats, trying to make her sister smile. Sophie, weaker, curled under a thin blanket, her large eyes clouded by lingering fevers. Her tumor was spreading faster, making breathing hard and sitting up impossible. Yet even in her worst pain, Sophie clung to Lily's hand, as if her sister's presence was her only strength. The twins, identical as 2 drops of water, were now divided by disease. Lily could still walk, while Sophie watched from her bed. Daniel Harper, the millionaire father, rarely left the hospital. He sat on a stiff plastic chair by their beds, his expensive suit rumpled, eyes shadowed from sleepless nights. He held Sophie's hand, gently stroking her thin hair, then turned to Lily, smiling encouragingly as she showed off a new drawing. But inside, his heart was breaking. Each time a nurse wheeled in a medicine cart, each time a doctor brought an update, Daniel held his breath, hoping for a miracle. But the news was only cold words, tumors unresponsive, condition worsening, palliative care. He hated those words, hated how they reduced his daughters to numbers on paper. The hospital wasn't just a place of treatment, it was a microcosm of mixed emotions. Nurses, with gentle smiles, brought cookies and small toys for the girls. A young doctor even played a board game with Lily, making her giggle as she won his pieces. But these joyful moments were rare drops of sunlight in a storm. Daniel noticed Sophie speaking less, only whispering for water or wanting Lily close. Lily, though stronger, sensed her sister's fragility. Once, after a nurse left, Lily climbed onto Sophie's bed, hugging her tightly and singing a lullaby Mama Clara taught them. Daniel turned away, hiding his tears. Their suburban home, just miles away, stood empty. Toys lay scattered on the floor. Little dresses hung unworn in closets. Daniel rarely returned, unable to bear the silence of rooms once filled with laughter. He brought a few items to the hospital. Sophie's favorite wool blanket, Lily's beloved teddy bear to create familiarity. But the hospital remained a hospital, with its antiseptic smell and cold white walls. Each day, Daniel felt trapped in a nightmare he couldn't wake from. Clara, who'd cared for Lily and Sophie since birth, became indispensable in this hospital world. She came daily, bringing homemade meals, funny stories, and the tenderness the girls craved. She wiped Sophie's forehead, helped Lily tie her hair, and sat with them when Daniel stepped out for calls. She wasn't just a housekeeper, she was an anchor, a light in dark days. One evening, as moonlight slipped through the window, Clara watched the girls sleep, hands clasped. An idea sparked in her. If science and money couldn't save them, could she do something greater? But how could an ordinary woman like her defy fate? In a framed photo, Anna, Daniel Harper's late wife, smiled radiantly, cradling her pregnant belly, her brown hair gleaming in summer light. The picture, now lightly dusted, was the only memory Lily and Sophie, the 7-year-old twins, had of their mother. Their home, once alive with laughter, now stood silent like a museum of lost happiness. Daniel stood before the shelf, touching the frame, heart heavy. He remembered Anna, her lullabies, her dreams for the girls' future, a future now stolen by liver cancer. Lily and Sophie never knew their mother beyond Daniel's stories. Each night, as they lay in hospital beds, Daniel sat between them, his warm voice recounting Anna. He told of their first meeting at a small Lake Michigan cafe, where Anna spilled coffee on his shirt, and they laughed until tears fell. He shared how Anna chose their names, Lily for her favorite flower, Sophie for the wisdom she hoped they'd have. These stories tied the girls to the mother they never met. Lily often interrupted, asking, "Did Mom like to draw, Daddy?" Sophie, weaker, listened silently, her large eyes gleaming with longing. In the hospital room, Anna's photo sat on a table by the beds. Lily and Sophie often stared at it, as if memorizing her features. Once, Lily, hands trembling from medication, pointed at the photo and whispered, "I want Mom to hug me, just once." Her words cut Daniel like a knife. He turned away, pretending to adjust an IV line to hide his red eyes. Sophie, though exhausted, held Lily's hand, whispering something only they understood. Daniel knew they craved a mother's embrace, a tenderness he couldn't fully replace. The hospital, their refuge, lacked a mother's warmth. Nurses, though kind, came and went. Doctors, with dry explanations, couldn't fill the emotional void. Daniel tried to compensate, bringing Sophie's favorite cookies, Lily's picture books. But he saw the loneliness in their eyes, especially Sophie's, who curled up with her teddy bear, gazed distant as if searching for something far off. Lily, though stronger, grew quieter, sensing the growing gap between her and her sister. Clara, who'd cared for the girls since birth, was the only light in these dark days. She brought hospital meals, tomato soup for Sophie, peanut butter sandwiches for Lily. She sat by their beds, telling stories of dancing rabbits, making them giggle. Once, when Sophie coughed, Clara gently rubbed her back, singing a lullaby Anna once sang. Daniel, watching from the door, realized Clara wasn't just caring, she loved his daughters like her own. Lily and Sophie called her Mama Clara, a name as natural as breathing, warming and breaking Daniel's heart. Daniel recalled the days after Anna's death. He'd hired Clara as a housekeeper, setting clear boundaries. She was staff, not family. But those lines blurred. Clara wiped Lily's tears when she fell, sang Sophie to sleep after nightmares. She was the only one besides Daniel the girls turned to when scared. Now, in the cold hospital room, Clara was a bridge to happier memories, to the mother the girls longed for. But could she do more? Could she bring the miracle Daniel couldn't find? Sophie, curled up on her Chicago hospital bed, clutched her worn teddy bear, looking at the balloons with cloudy but hopeful eyes. Beside her, Lily sat cross-legged, drawing a colorful picture, humming a cheerful song about flying cats. The twins, ravaged by liver cancer, still held their childlike spark. But today, in the sterile room heavy with antiseptic, Sophie sat up, mustering her last strength, and whispered something that stopped Daniel Harper's world. "Daddy, I want a birthday party," Sophie said, her voice faint but firm. Daniel, on the plastic chair by her bed, froze. He looked at Lily, who stopped drawing, eyes lighting up as if it were a brilliant idea. "For both of us, Daddy," Lily chirped, grabbing Sophie's hand. Their 8th birthday was weeks away, but with Sophie's condition, doctors warned she might not make it. Daniel's chest tightened, but Sophie's fragile smile and Lily's eager eyes left him no choice. He nodded, voice choked. "All right, girls, it'll be the best party ever." Sophie wanted balloons, chocolate cake, and pop music they'd dance to in the living room. Lily added ideas of paper crowns and games their school friends could play. Despite her weakening body, Sophie spoke of the party with rare excitement, as if the disease couldn't touch her dream. Lily, though stronger, watched Sophie, ensuring she didn't tire from talking. Daniel watched them, his heart torn between pain and love. He knew this might be their last joy, and he was determined to make it real. Clara, who'd become Mama Clara to the girls, stood quietly in the corner, listening to Sophie's words. She smiled, but her eyes betrayed pain. She knew Sophie's condition, fevers, fainting spells from pain. But today, hearing Sophie talk of balloons and cake, Clara felt a spark in her heart. She stepped forward, stroking Sophie's hair, and said, "Mama Clara will make the best chocolate cake for you, okay?" Sophie nodded, her weak smile radiant. Lily giggled, adding, "And lots of marshmallows too." Daniel started planning immediately. He called their school, friends, and hospital staff, asking for help. Nurses offered a larger pediatric room for balloons and a party table. A teacher promised to bring students with handmade cards. Clara, with her meticulous care, noted every detail. The girls' favorite colors, pink for Sophie, blue for Lily, their favorite songs, and dairy-free frosting for Sophie's stomach. She wanted the party to be more than an event, a lasting memory for the girls. The hospital, though cold, began to warm with hope. Nurses hung colorful streamers. A doctor volunteered as DJ with the girls' favorite pop playlist. But amid the smiles and plans, Daniel couldn't forget the truth. Sophie's time was running out. Each time he looked at her, her frail body seemed like a candle about to flicker out. Lily, trying to be strong, sensed her sister fading, holding her hand tighter, as if to keep her here. Clara, while preparing, felt a growing urge. The party would bring joy, but it couldn't save Sophie or Lily. Watching them hold hands, she wondered, could she do something to change their fate? A bold, dangerous idea began to spark. But did she have the strength to make it real? Are you still here, dear audience? Take a moment to relax, maybe grab a glass of water, and keep listening to this gripping story. Comment 1 if you're hooked, and don't forget to subscribe. In the hospital room, Clara, her hair neatly tied and eyes pensive, gently draped a blue wool blanket over Lily, asleep on an armchair by her sister's bed. Sophie, small and pale, lay under dim light, clutching the worn teddy bear Clara gave her when she was a toddler. Clara checked the IV line, adjusted Sophie's pillow, then sat, her gaze never leaving the twins. They called her Mama Clara, a name not just a title but a bond deeper than blood. Clara entered Lily and Sophie's lives after their mother, Anna, died from childbirth complications. Daniel Harper, then a broken man, buried himself in work to escape grief. He hired Clara as a housekeeper with simple duties: clean, cook, manage the home. But Clara, with her warm heart and gentle hands, became more. She stayed up late, singing Sophie to sleep after nightmares, taught Lily to tie her shoes through a game. She wiped tears, told stories of singing unicorns, and made smiley-face pancakes the girls loved. To Lily and Sophie, Clara wasn't just a housekeeper, she was a second mother, filling the void Anna left. Their Chicago suburban home, with wooden walls and a lush garden, was once the girls' playground, where Clara pushed swings and chased them on bikes. But since the cancer struck, everything changed. The house stood cold, with only Clara's footsteps as she brought items to the hospital. She never left the girls. When Lily drew, Clara was the first to praise. When Sophie coughed, Clara wiped her brow and whispered comfort. Daniel, though grateful, kept his distance, as if fearing Clara's role would blur Anna's memory. But Lily and Sophie didn't need papers or blood. They called her Mama Clara since age 4, a name as natural as summer light. Clara carried an unhealed wound. Growing up in a poor Chicago suburb, her family couldn't afford treatment for her brother Tommy, who had a heart condition. She still recalled long nights by Tommy's bed, hearing him whisper dreams of being an astronaut. When Tommy died, Clara, just 15, vowed never to let another child suffer without her help. Now, watching Lily and Sophie, she saw Tommy in their eyes, the innocence, resilience, and unspoken fear. Clara didn't just care for the girls, she lived for them, as if they were her reason to exist. In the hospital room, Clara often sat between them, holding their hands as they slept. She sang lullabies her mother taught her voice soft as a breeze. Lily, though tired, smiled when Clara told stories of a hip-hop dancing cat, making both girls giggle. Sophie, weaker, tried singing along, her tiny voice full of resolve. Clara never let them see her cry, but each night, in her small room at the Harper house, she let tears fall. She knew Sophie's time was slipping away, and Lily's wasn't far behind. But she couldn't accept this fate. Clara looked at Anna's photo by the bed, feeling the love that mother had for her daughters. She wondered if Anna was watching from somewhere. Clara wasn't family, had no legal rights, but her heart knew no boundaries. She'd become Lily and Sophie's mother, not by blood, but by choice. And now, as the idea of their birthday party took shape, Clara felt a fire ignite within her. The party was just the start. Could she do something greater, something even Daniel, with all his wealth, couldn't achieve? In the Chicago hospital room, Clara sat quietly by Sophie's bed, her hands clasped as if in prayer. The steady beep of the heart monitor mingled with the faint breaths of the 7-year-old, now a shadow of herself. Lily, asleep in an armchair, clutched the teddy bear Clara had once sewn back together when it tore. Clara gazed at the twin girls, their faces identical as 2 drops of water, yet cruelly divided by fate. Sophie, with her faster-spreading liver tumor, was fading like a candle in the wind. Clara's chest tightened, but deep within her, a silent vow from years past surged stronger than ever. Clara had never shared her past with anyone in the Harper household. Growing up in a poor Southside Chicago neighborhood, she watched her brother, Tommy, battle a congenital heart condition. Her family couldn't afford costly surgeries. Clara, then just a girl, spent hours by Tommy's bedside, holding his hand, telling stories of space adventures he dreamed of. But Tommy never got his chance. He died on a freezing winter night, leaving Clara with an indelible pain and a promise to herself. If she ever had the chance to protect another child, she'd do anything, no matter the cost. Now, looking at Lily and Sophie, Clara saw Tommy in their clear eyes. Sophie, though weak, still tried to smile when Clara told stories of a guitar-playing cat. Lily, though stronger, always held her sister's hand, as if passing her strength. Clara wasn't just a housekeeper. She was a second mother, the one the girls turned to in fear or pain. She'd wiped Lily's tears after a bike fall, sung Sophie to sleep through fevered nights. Every meal she cooked, every story she told, was part of that vow to bring joy and comfort to the children she loved like her own. The Harpers' suburban home, with its wooden walls and once vibrant garden, now stood cold as a tomb. Clara was the only one keeping a flicker of warmth alive. She brought the girls' favorite wool blankets to the hospital, colorful picture books, and homemade cookies Sophie tried to nibble. When Daniel was absent, lost in calls for treatments, Clara stayed, moving between their beds, stroking their hair, singing softly. She never let them see her fear, but each night, in her small room at the Harper house, she sat before a mirror, facing memories of Tommy and the dread of losing Lily and Sophie. Clara didn't just fill the void left by Anna, the mother the girls never knew. She brought peace to the household. Daniel, though consumed by work and futile battles against the disease, noticed the change. With Clara, Lily laughed more. Sophie feared less. She turned bleak hospital days into cherished moments, even with silly stories of a hip-hop dancing dog. But Clara knew those smiles couldn't stop the disease. Sophie was weakening, and Lily, though trying to be strong, was tiring. Time was slipping away, and Clara felt her vow couldn't stop at comfort. Each night, as the girls slept, Clara looked at Anna's photo on the table, as if speaking to the late mother. She felt Anna's love for her daughters, and wondered if she could do what Anna would have. Clara had no wealth or power like Daniel, but she had something stronger, a mother's heart. The vow from losing Tommy became a fire within her. She wouldn't let Lily and Sophie share his fate. But how could she fight a disease the world had given up on? Rainbow balloons floated in the large pediatric ward of the Chicago hospital, swaying like childish dreams amid the antiseptic air. A long table, draped in pink and blue paper, held cookies, marshmallows, and a giant chocolate cake with "Happy Birthday, Lily and Sophie" written in white frosting. Upbeat pop music played from a Bluetooth speaker, mixing with the laughter of kids from a nearby elementary school. Today was the 8th birthday of the twin girls, Lily and Sophie, but the festive air couldn't hide the fragility of the moment. Sophie, in a wheelchair, her face pale but eyes bright with joy, sat beside Lily, who danced around, wearing a glittering paper crown. Clara, whom the girls called Mama Clara, stood in the room's center, deftly arranging cookie plates and pouring juice. In a simple blue sweater, hair tied high, her gentle smile hid her inner worry. Sophie, too weak to hold a spoon, tried a bite of cake, chocolate frosting smudging her chin, making Lily giggle. Clara wiped Sophie's chin with a napkin, her touch as tender as a hug. Lily pulled friends into a ring toss game, but her eyes stayed on Sophie, ensuring she was okay. Daniel Harper, near the door, watched with red eyes. In a rumpled shirt, camera in hand, he captured every moment, knowing this might be Sophie's last birthday. The party was exactly as the girls wanted. Nurses hung colorful streamers. A doctor played wizard in a silly paper hat, making the kids laugh. Handmade cards from Lily and Sophie's classmates, filled with rainbows and unicorns, Sophie's lucky theme piled on the table. Clara ensured perfection, cake not too sweet for Sophie, music lively but not loud to tire her. She wheeled Sophie close to the table, helping her blow out candles, though Sophie's weak breath only flickered the flames. Lily clapped, shouting, "I'll help, Sophie," and they blew together, sparking laughter from everyone. But amid the joy, the disease's shadow loomed. Sophie, though smiling, paused often, clutching her chest as pain struck. Clara, ever watchful, adjusted Sophie's pillow, whispering something to make her smile faintly. Lily, though dancing with friends, checked on Sophie, bringing a cookie or balloon. Daniel felt the moment's fragility. He knew Sophie had weeks left, and Lily couldn't escape the disease either. The party was a joyful oasis in a desert of grief, but it couldn't stop time. Clara, heart heavy, kept smiling for the girls. She told a silly story of a unicorn stealing cake, making the kids roar with laughter. But her eyes stayed on Sophie, whose trembling hands struggled with a cup. Clara knew the party was Sophie's dream, but it couldn't save her. Seeing Lily and Sophie hold hands, singing to their favorite pop song, Clara felt a fire ignite within her. She'd promised herself after losing Tommy, no child would die if she could help. That promise was now a mission. As the party wound down, Clara sat by Sophie, wiping frosting from her hand. Lily ran over, hugging them both, whispering, "Best birthday ever, Mama Clara." Clara smiled, but in her heart, a daring plan was forming. The party was a gift, but she wanted more, a chance for them to live. How could she face death's approach when Sophie's time was running out faster than ever? The party's echoes lingered in the pediatric ward of the Chicago hospital, where rainbow balloons floated, swaying like dreams yet to fade. The faint smell of chocolate cake mixed with the silenced pop music, leaving a heavy stillness. Sophie, in her wheelchair, clutched her fluffy teddy bear, her cloudy eyes still glowing with joy from moments before. Lily, in her glittering paper crown, sat beside her, holding a pink balloon, trying to smile despite worry in her eyes. Clara, their second mother, cleaned up leftover plates, her mind lost in deep thoughts. Then, in the quiet, a question from Sophie stopped the world. "Will I get to stay with Lily, Mama Clara?" Sophie asked, her voice a faint breeze, weak but sharp, cutting like a knife. Clara froze, holding a frosting-stained napkin, her eyes wide. Daniel, near the door with his camera around his neck, felt his feet turn to stone. Lily, usually quick to answer Sophie's questions, went silent, gripping the balloon string until it squeaked. The room, alive with laughter minutes ago, sank into a painful stillness, as if the air itself held its breath at Sophie's question. Clara knelt by the wheelchair, taking Sophie's small, cold hand. She wanted to offer comfort, but Sophie's clear eyes stopped her from empty words. Sophie, though only 7, seemed to know her body was fading. She looked at Clara, then Lily, as if memorizing her sister's face. Daniel stepped forward, wanting to speak, but his throat closed. He turned away, pretending to check his phone, hiding tears about to spill. Sophie's question wasn't just a child's words. It was a plea, a cry to fate. Lily, with a sister's strength, climbed beside the wheelchair, hugging Sophie tightly. "You'll live, Sophie. I promise," she said, voice trembling but firm. Clara watched them, her heart constricted. She remembered Tommy, who'd asked her something similar before he was gone forever. "Will I get better, sis?" Back then, Clara lied to comfort him, but now, she wouldn't repeat that mistake. She took a deep breath, smiled at Sophie, and said, "Mama Clara will do everything to keep you and Lily together, okay?" Sophie nodded faintly, a pale smile on her pale face. But Clara knew the promise wasn't simple. She'd heard the doctors. Sophie's tumor was spreading faster, giving her weeks, while Lily might last longer. Each night, as the girls slept, Clara sat by their beds, watching them hold hands, her pain mingling with theirs. She didn't want just to comfort, she wanted to fight. The birthday party, though wonderful, was fleeting. Clara thought of caring for them since they toddled, singing lullabies, hearing them call her Mama Clara. She couldn't let them go, couldn't let her promise to Tommy break again. Daniel, regaining composure, approached Clara, placing a hand on her shoulder. "Thank you," he said, voice hoarse. But Clara didn't look at him. Her eyes stayed on Sophie, then shifted to Lily, as if seeking an answer science and money couldn't give. In her heart, a bold, almost crazy plan was forming. She had no rights, no wealth, but she had love and resolve. Could an ordinary woman like her do what the world had abandoned? Chicago's night sky shimmered with stars, but Clara had no time to look. She stood in the hospital's small staff room, a cold coffee cup on the table, her eyes fixed on a stack of medical papers she'd secretly taken from the doctor's office. The words stared back: living donor liver transplant, tissue compatibility, success rates. Sophie, the weaker twin, had only weeks left, while Lily could hold on longer. But time didn't wait, and Clara knew only a miracle could save both. In her heart, a daring decision was forming a race against death itself. Clara wasn't a doctor, but she'd spent nights reading medical books, quietly asking nurses about living donor transplants. She knew a healthy donor could save a liver cancer patient, but with 2 girls, it was far more complex. One liver could only save 1 child, and Sophie, in critical condition, needed priority. Clara thought of herself. She was healthy, disease-free, and her blood type matched Sophie's, a detail she'd learned donating blood at the hospital. But choosing between Sophie and Lily tore her heart apart. She couldn't save both at once, but she couldn't let either go. That night, as the hospital slept, Clara slipped into the lab, asking a trusted nurse to run a tissue compatibility test. She told no one, Not even Daniel. The results came back at midnight via email. Clara opened her laptop, hands shaking as she read. Perfect match for patient Sophie Harper. She could donate her liver to save Sophie. But what about Lily? She closed the laptop, sitting in the dark, memories of Tommy flooding back. She couldn't save him. But this time, she was determined not to let history repeat. She needed a plan not just for Sophie, but for Lily too. Clara scoured international medical sites, called hospitals in the US and Canada. She found a Toronto medical center with an advanced liver transplant program, having performed complex pediatric surgeries. But time was the enemy. Sophie needed surgery now, while finding a donor for Lily could take months. Clara considered organ donation registries, but waiting lists were endless. She felt like she was racing a clock that never stopped, each tick a stab at hope. Daniel, meanwhile, was lost in futile efforts. He contacted experts in California, Japan, even Germany, but none offered the answer he sought. He didn't know Clara's plan, only noticed her growing silence, her eyes burning with resolve. Once, bringing tomato soup to the room, Clara looked more exhausted than usual. "Are you okay, Clara?" Daniel asked, voice worried. She smiled, nodded, but said nothing of her sleepless nights or secret calls. She didn't want him to stop her, didn't want him to know she was risking everything. Each day, Clara spent with Lily and Sophie, hiding her fears with happy stories. She told of a unicorn throwing a cloud-top birthday party, making them giggle. But when Sophie slept, Clara held Lily's hand, feeling her warmth, wondering if she could save both. She knew donating her liver was risky, and if she did it for Sophie, she might not be strong enough for Lily later. But giving up wasn't an option. She recalled her birthday party promise to Sophie. "Mama Clara will do everything to keep you and Lily together." In the staff room's darkness, Clara looked at Anna's photo, as if seeking the late mother's approval. She had no rights, no wealth, but she had her love and her vow from Tommy's loss. She couldn't stand still as Sophie and Lily fought death. A bold, near-mad plan was forming. But could she overcome medical and time barriers to save both girls? The cold hospital lights reflected Clara's hurried steps down the Chicago hospital corridor, clutching a test result. The tissue compatibility result was fresh, a faint hope in a storm of despair. Clara, the twins' second mother, had learned she could donate her liver to save Sophie, teetering on death's edge from metastasized liver cancer. But the joy faded as reality hit. She could only save one, and Sophie needed surgery urgently. Lily, though stronger, was weakening. Clara faced a wrenching choice, as if fate forced her to cut her heart in two. Clara brought the test result to the chief hepatologist, an older man with stern but empathetic eyes. In a small antiseptic-smelling room, she placed the paper on his desk, voice trembling but resolute. "I want to donate my liver to Sophie." The doctor shook his head, adjusting his glasses, explaining that hospital rules barred her as a non-legal relative. "Strict regulations," he said, protected both patient and donor. Clara felt the ground collapse beneath her. She wasn't a mother, a sister, just a housekeeper, an outsider in the law's eyes. But to Lily and Sophie, she was Mama Clara, more vital than any document. The doctor continued, voice even. "Even if allowed, the surgery's risky. You could be in danger, and we haven't found a donor for Lily." Clara listened, but her mind was elsewhere. She thought of Sophie's worsening pain, Lily's smile hiding fear of losing her sister. Choosing between them was unbearable, but time didn't wait. Sophie had weeks, Lily longer. Clara knew she had to act, despite the barriers. Daniel, the millionaire father, sensed Clara was doing something secretly. One evening, as she left the room to make a call, he caught her in the corridor, eyes worried. "What are you doing, Clara?" he asked, voice torn between suspicion and fear. Clara hesitated, then confessed about the test and her plan to donate. Daniel was stunned. He grabbed her shoulders, voice shaking. "You can't do this. I can't lose you. My girls need you." He'd lost Anna, and the thought of losing Clara, the family's warmth, terrified him. But Clara, eyes firm, said only, "If I don't, we'll lose Sophie." Daniel turned away, fists clenched. He understood her heart but couldn't accept her risking her life. He'd spent millions, contacted every doctor, found no answers. Clara, with her boundless love, was the only hope, but also his greatest fear. He forbade her to proceed, asking her to focus on caring for the girls instead of a reckless plan. Clara nodded to calm him, but inside, she knew she couldn't stop. Each night, Clara sat by Sophie and Lily's beds, watching them hold hands in sleep. She told of a unicorn soaring over rainbows, making Lily giggle before drifting off. But as the hospital lights dimmed, Clara scrolled medical sites, seeking a hospital to perform the surgery despite rules. She thought of Canada, where a Toronto center had done complex liver transplants. But choosing between Sophie and Lily haunted her. She wanted to save both, but time was running out, and she had only one liver to give. Clara looked at Anna's photo, as if asking the late mother's permission. She had no wealth, no rights, but she had her love and her vow from losing Tommy. She couldn't stand still as Sophie and Lily fought death, but could she defy Daniel's ban and legal barriers to bring a miracle for the girls? Chicago's starry night sky glowed, but Clara had no time to gaze. She stood in the hospital parking lot, clutching a small suitcase with clothes and Lily and Sophie's medical records. Her eyes were resolute, but her heart pounded. She'd found a Toronto hospital willing to perform Sophie's liver transplant despite her non-legal status. They also promised to search for a donor for Lily if she brought both girls immediately. But to do so, Clara had to take the twins from Chicago, cross the border, and face legal risks, all without telling Daniel Harper. Clara knew she was risking everything. Daniel, the millionaire father, had forbidden her transplant plan, fearing she'd endanger herself and the girls would lose their second mother. But Clara couldn't wait. Sophie had days left, each breath a battle. Lily, though stronger, was fading. Clara had secretly contacted the Toronto hospital, sent her test results, and received confirmation. They could operate on Sophie upon arrival. A faint hope flickered when they said they were seeking a donor for Lily, but time was the greatest foe. In the dark hospital room, Clara prepared. She gently wheeled Sophie's chair, checking her IV to ensure stability. Lily, golden hair tied high, held her sister's hand, eyes both worried and trusting. "Where are we going, Mama Clara?" Lily whispered, voice small but curious. Clara smiled, stroking her hair. "An adventure, my love, to help Sophie get better." She didn't mention the risks that she was breaking the law by taking them without Daniel's consent, that the surgery could claim her life. She only wanted the girls to believe it would be okay. The journey began at dawn. As the hospital slept, with a friendly nurse's help, aware of the plan, Clara got Lily and Sophie to the car. She drove an old SUV, once used for park trips, now a vessel for a daring escape. The 500-mile road to Canada was long, and Clara kept Sophie comfortable with oxygen and painkillers. Lily sat beside her, softly singing their favorite unicorn song to make Sophie smile. Clara glanced at them in the rearview mirror, her heart warm yet aching. She thought of Tommy, whom she couldn't save, and vowed this time would be different. The trip wasn't easy. Sophie's occasional coughs forced Clara to stop and check her. Lily, though tired, held Sophie's hand, telling silly cat stories to lift her spirits. Clara called the Toronto hospital, confirming arrival time. They promised to prep the operating room, but stressed Sophie needed to arrive before her condition worsened. Clara pressed the gas, eyes locked on the road, as if she could force time to slow. Daniel, unaware, stayed at the hospital, thinking Clara had taken the girls for a test. But as hours passed with no return, dread grew. He called Clara, but she didn't answer. He checked the room, finding only Anna's photo, a reminder of what he might lose. Clara, with a mother's love, had acted when he couldn't. But she was risking everything: her health, freedom, and Daniel's trust. As the SUV crossed the Canadian border, dawn broke, gilding the road ahead. Clara looked at Sophie, sleeping with faint breaths, and Lily, still holding her hand. She knew she'd stepped onto a path of no return. But would this journey bring a miracle, or was it just a gamble with all three of their fates? Clara sat, her knees trembling, hands clasped as if holding on to the last shred of hope. She had just endured a journey of over 500 miles, bringing Lily and Sophie across the border for their only chance at survival. Sophie, the weaker twin, was wheeled into the operating room first, her pale face managing a faint smile as Clara kissed her forehead. Lily, sitting outside in the waiting area, clutched her teddy bear, her anxious eyes fixed on the operating room door. Clara, heart heavy, prepared to donate her liver to save Sophie. While the hospital had just found a compatible donor for Lily, a sudden miracle on the edge of life and death. Sophie's surgery began the moment they arrived in Toronto. Doctors, masked and gloved, moved swiftly in the sterile operating room where Sophie lay, small under the bright lights. Clara, after signing consent forms, was taken to another operating room. She lay on the table, eyes fixed on the ceiling, thinking of the days caring for the girls, from braiding Lily's hair to singing Sophie to sleep. She wasn't afraid for herself, but worried for Sophie, and Lily made her heart race. The anesthesiologist asked, "Are you ready?" Clara nodded, whispering, "Save her." Then the lights faded as she slipped into artificial sleep. Meanwhile, Daniel Harper, the millionaire father, discovered Clara and the girls' absence upon returning to the Chicago hospital. He found a note Clara left, scrawled with the words, "I've taken the girls to a place of hope. Please don't worry." Daniel was stunned, his heart torn between anger and fear. He made frantic calls, finally learning Clara had taken Lily and Sophie to Toronto. Without hesitation, he chartered a private jet, flying across the border, his mind in turmoil. He thought of Clara, the woman he once saw as just a housekeeper, now the only one daring to defy fate to save his daughters. As the plane landed, Daniel rushed to the hospital, arriving just as Sophie and Clara's surgeries began. In the waiting area, Lily sat silently, hugging her teddy bear, eyes glued to the operating room door. A kind nurse brought her a cup of apple juice, but she didn't drink. "Mama Clara will be okay, right?" Lily asked, her voice small but hopeful. The nurse smiled, unable to promise, and held her hand. Then came good news. A compatible liver donor for Lily had been found, a stranger from the organ donor list, agreeing to donate immediately. Lily's surgery was scheduled right after Sophie's, a ray of light in the storm, but both operations carried high risks, especially for Sophie, who was so weak. In the operating room, doctors worked with the precision of artists. A portion of Clara's liver was removed, rushed to the next room for Sophie's transplant. Machines beeped steadily, monitoring both their heartbeats closely. Hours passed, and Daniel arrived at the hospital, standing outside the operating rooms, hands clenched. Through the glass, he saw the doctor's shadows moving, feeling the fragility of it all. He thought of Anna, how he'd failed to protect her, and now Clara was doing what he couldn't. He whispered, like a prayer, "Please, let them live." When Sophie's surgery ended, a doctor emerged, sweat on his brow. "The operation was successful," he said cautiously, "but Sophie needs time to recover." Clara, in recovery, was still unconscious. Lily, preparing for her surgery, held Daniel's hand, whispering, "Daddy, Mama Clara kept her promise." Daniel hugged her tightly, tears streaming down. But a question lingered. Would Sophie and Clara survive the critical hours ahead, and would Lily make it through her surgery? Sophie and Lily lay side by side, their small hands clasped as if never wanting to let go. Sophie, the weaker twin, now breathed more steadily, her pale face tinged with color after Clara's liver transplant. Lily, fresh from her own surgery with a liver from a stranger, slept soundly, her golden hair messy on the pillow. The machines beeped softly, like a lullaby of life. Clara, awake after her surgery, lay nearby, her tired eyes brightening at the sight of the girls alive, holding hands. A double miracle had happened, but their journey wasn't over. That day, the Toronto hospital seemed bathed in new energy. Doctors, who'd worked tirelessly through back-to-back surgeries, exchanged satisfied nods. Sophie's transplant exceeded expectations. Her tumor was removed, and her small body was responding. Lily, operated on later, was stable, her new liver fitting as if meant for her. Clara, weakened from losing part of her liver, smiled when a nurse reported both girls had passed the critical stage. She thought of her brother Tommy, whom she couldn't save, and felt a relief she'd never known this time she'd beaten death. Daniel Harper, the millionaire father, sat between the girls' beds, his red eyes shining with hope. He was still reeling from Clara's daring act, taking Lily and Sophie across the border without telling him. But seeing the girls holding hands, breathing steadily, he realized Clara had done what he, with all his wealth and power, couldn't. He approached Clara's bed, took her hand, and said, voice choked. You saved my girls. Clara smiled weakly, replying, I just wanted to keep my promise to them. Daniel bowed his head, feeling small for the first time before an ordinary woman like Clara. The following days, the recovery room became a small world of joy and healing. Lily, with a sister's strength, woke first, demanding Clara tell a unicorn story. Sophie, slower to recover, began sitting up, whispering for a cookie. Clara, though in pain from surgery, sat beside them, stroking their hair, singing softly. She told a silly story of a cat throwing a cloud-top party, making Lily giggle and Sophie try to clap. Daniel watched, feeling his heart mend, though scarred from desperate days. Clara and the twins' story spread quickly. Nurses whispered about the housekeeper who risked everything to save 2 children. A local reporter, hearing the tale, began writing, and soon the nation knew their journey. But Clara didn't care for fame. She only wanted to be with Lily and Sophie, watching them grow stronger, seeing them smile. Each day, she checked their progress, held their hands, and felt the warmth of her heart's children. The hospital, once a place of pain, became a symbol of hope, but a miracle didn't mean the end. Sophie and Lily still needed time to fully recover, and Clara, though strong, faced a weakened body post-surgery. Daniel, for the first time in years, thought of the future not just as a father, but as a man who could rebuild a family. He looked at Clara, who'd given him the greatest gift, and wondered if she could be part of their lives forever. As the sunset gilded the room, Clara sat between the girls, watching them hold hands and laugh. She knew the journey was long, but for the first time, she believed all 3 would make it. But would this miracle last, or was a new challenge waiting ahead? The moon's faint glow shone through the Toronto hospital window, where Clara sat between Lily and Sophie, softly singing the lullaby she'd sung since they were small. The twins, now healthier after their fateful transplants, held hands, their smiles like sunlight dispelling the darkness of desperate days. Clara's journey from a housekeeper to a mother who gambled everything touched millions across America, becoming a symbol of courage and unconditional love. She didn't need fame. She only needed to see Lily and Sophie live, laugh, and grow. This story teaches us that family isn't just blood, but hearts that choose to stand together, no matter the risk. Clara crossed borders, laws, and her own fears to save the girls. But is their journey truly over? Will Sophie and Lily stay healthy, or will the disease return? Can Clara and Daniel heal the past to move forward together? Part 2 of the story awaits your discovery. Leave a comment, share your thoughts, and let us know if you want to see the next part. Subscribe to the channel today, and share this story with loved ones across the United States. We're thrilled to have you with us, from wherever you are. Spread this message of love and hope to everyone.